Okay, it looks like we're at about 9:07 now, and we have 43 participants. So I think we're going to go ahead and get started. Just a few housekeeping things beforehand. All of the attendees are on mute right now just to control the audio, but at the end, we're going to have an open forum where we can have Q&A session with all the board members. And also, we'll be recording this so that we can share this with our audience. So with that, I would like to hand it over to Dan Klein, the Information Architecture Institute President.
Thank you, Laura. And I think what I will do is share my screen.
Okay.
And
I'll stop sharing.
There we go. Can everybody see my screen?
Yes.
Great. Thank you, everybody, for attending the meeting today. We realize that one meeting for our global community isn't going to work for everybody. But nevertheless, here we are with one meeting that we're trying to use for everybody. And I'm so glad that you could join us today. We are sponsored by Rosenfeld Media, and all of the attendees who have joined the meeting today are eligible to win a fabulous prize from our steadfast sponsor at Rosenfeld Media. Thank you to them. And for the meeting today, we have a new sponsor, which is an information architecture consultancy out of New York City called Logic Department. And the principal of that company, Samantha Raditz, has made this meeting possible for us today, and she is our board member in charge of events. So thanks a lot to Sam for making the digital place for us to talk together today. As you may know, this is an all-volunteer board of directors. Each of us serves a 2-year term, and then based on whether or not we want to do it again in the same capacity, each time you serve for a position on the board, you are permitted to run for it again. And then after 2 consecutive terms, you need to do something else. And so we've got 2 brand new board members as of last year. We've got a new treasurer in Amy Espinoza, who is somebody that many of you will recognize as the global coordinator for World Information Architecture Day last year. And then we also have a new director for education, and sadly she's unable to join us today. She's at the New Zealand UX conference today, and that's Crispian Emert, and she is in charge of education for the Institute. The rest of the directors that are serving on the board this year include myself. My name is Dan Klein. I'm an information architect in the state of Michigan in the United States. Our secretary and director of communications is Lara Fedorov, whose voice you heard at the top of the call. Samantha Raditz, I mentioned, is a principal at Logic Department and a sponsor of this call. She takes care of events for the Institute. And then the 2 remaining directors on this slide to introduce you to: Rachel Hines, who is the heads up special projects and strategic projects for us, and Judy Siegel, who some of you may know as the voice and face of the Institute when it comes to working with our partners to develop our relationships with sponsors and partners. So I'm really thankful to everyone who's serving on this board. It is, there's no money involved, as we'll see when we go over the financials. It's really about having some time to put in and a belief in and love for the mission of this organization, which for the 2016 to 2018 board, we agreed that the mission, in our own words, is for the Institute to promote awareness, provide support, and expand opportunity for people and organizations who are doing information architecture work. And full stop there. We're not an organization for information architects alone. If you don't have that title in your stack of business cards, that is completely all right. We're here to serve you and to expand the opportunities for anyone who is interested in doing this important work. And then the vision, once we've completed our terms, would we have moved the needle? Our vision is a world where everybody knows that information architecture is the practice for making the complex clear. And like many of you, I've received advice that a vision should be something that's hard. And that's an aspirational vision for sure, but that's what keeps us going. That's why we all serve on this board, is to enact this mission and this vision. So for the call today, we don't intend to spend the whole time talking. We're interested in hearing from you, and all of the things that we are presenting today and referencing today are available as downloads from the Institute website. We've got an annual report for the numbers for the financial year 2016, as well as, and this is awfully exciting to many of us, the beginning of our 2016 salary survey results and reporting. Thanks to the steadfast work of a dedicated volunteer, we have our salary survey results now starting to become available. And all of the requests in this presentation, all of our calls to action to you are reiterated in the documents that have been added to the website today. So after this call, please feel free to download those, scrutinize them, ask us questions as you see fit. Quick agenda. We'll start out with some highlights since the last annual general meeting. Then we will shift into a conversation about the work in progress for the 2017 year for the board. And then we'll look ahead to the 2018 calendar year. We've got some elections coming up and some work we'd like to do around sustainability for the Institute. So since the last time we met, we've got a smattering of highlights. And unlike the annual report, it's very frustrating when you're living in the now to have to work real hard on an annual report for the year before, because there's progress that hasn't been, that you're more mindful of, that you can't include in the 2016 report. So these highlights blend 2016 and year to date. And we'll start with a current count. So up until a couple days ago when we pulled the numbers, we are at an all-time high of 106 countries where members of the IA Institute do stuff. And similarly, we have an all-time high over on the other side of the top column there in the darker square. The current count of free members to the Institute, 8,670. We've realized about a 700% increase in free members since we last did an annual general meeting. And that is very exciting. To date, we are able to claim, and we express our love and gratitude to the 681 of you who pay dues to be a member of the Institute. That is the primary source of our revenue, and we are so grateful that you all continue to support the Institute with your annual memberships. If you don't know about that, if you're joining us today as a free member, those memberships come in 3 different varieties. There's a group membership for your whole team, there is a professional membership, and then there are student memberships as well. So thanks to everybody who continues to support us with those paid memberships. In the 2016 financial year, when the dust settled, we were about, and I won't say about, let me give you the exact number, $332.52 in the red. We had a loss for the prior year, and all of the details of how we just came shy of breaking even for the year are in the annual report. We've got it all broken down for you, but the quick explanation for that is simply the reduction in the number of paying members. We've had lots of strong support for World IA Day through sponsorships. What's been going down a little bit is those paid memberships. 2017 was a great year for World Information Architecture Day. We had 55 locations, celebrations as we call them, all over the world. Our current social media audience and presence is 30,000 folks who listen to us, who we have the ability to tell about information architecture. And then some other things that have happened since we last met. We've got 2 new board members, Crispian and Amy, as I highlighted in the previous slide. We're looking ahead to 2018 with 5 of our seats up for re-election. We'll talk about that toward the end of our prepared remarks today. And the IA Institute website, which was re-platformed by the previous board, is enjoying lots of traffic, 49,000 visitors so far in calendar year 2017. So we've made some progress. We've made some dramatic increases in the number of people who are involved, and we've slipped a little when it comes to the underlying revenue model from our membership. So that's the good news and a little bit of the bad news. And for more of the good news, I'd love to switch over to hand over to Samantha, who can tell us a little bit about World Adventure Day.
Thanks. Actually, Dan, if you want to keep sharing your screen and driving, I will just continue from where you left off. Thank you. Thanks. So yeah, as he said, we had a great World IA Day earlier this year on February 18th, 2017. Our theme this year currently, the fun thing about World IA Day is that since it spans 2 years, we are constantly discussing whether we're talking about this year or 2018. So currently we're talking about 2017. The theme was information strategy and structure. We had 55 locations that did a really amazing job. This was actually down 2 from 2016. But we had a massive jump from 2015 to 2016. So this is something that we were actually anticipating. Sustaining that number of locations and having all of them join us every single year is definitely a big ask, something that we do ask, but doesn't always work out. So we ended up with 55 great locations in 23 countries. Interestingly, we actually lost 5 countries between the years. So that kind of shows you the shift that we have across the globe and how this kind of moves around from year to year. So we had some losses in some countries, but we definitely had some increases in others. We had 4,200 attendees. This again was down from 2016, but we are actually really excited about the fact that we are maintaining a large number of events, and we're encouraging all sizes of events. So we have events that range from 10 people to like up to 300, 400 people, and even more. So there's a big range there. And what this says to us is that we're definitely getting interest from all around the world. That might shift a little bit in numbers we're getting from each location, but we're also encouraging various locations of any size, and we're definitely seeing that from year to year. We also had a really great fundraising year. We had $6,500 in cash raised last year. A large part of that was from the Understanding Group, which is Dan Klein's organization, who is helping to fund a web archive of content from all of our locations. So that is in process right now, something that we're very excited to start sharing with people. Probably early next year. We're working on some research and wireframes and all that good stuff at the moment. And we will be putting a lot of that cash towards that realization and holding all of that content for everyone from year to year. And so we were up from 2016. And on top of that, we had tons of great donations in terms of in-kind donations from locations, from sponsors that gave us things like download codes, ebooks, and all kinds of other great stuff. So it was a great year last year in 2017, and we really enjoyed working on it. So I will start off the work in progress and then hand it back to Dan. So we are in the process of gearing up for 2018. Our theme next year in 2018 is IA for Good. We really took a look at all the things that are happening in our world all across the globe. We got some great recommendations from our location leaders and what they would like to hear and what they would like to be focusing on in 2018. And we came up with IA for Good, nice, short, and sweet. We are currently at 58 locations. One of our big pushes this year is to keep allowing people to join us as long as we possibly can and get their information up about their location and their hosting. So that could go up slightly between now and February, we're hoping. We're in 24 countries, 5 continents, and it will be on February 24th. So go ahead and mark your calendar and go to worldiaday.org if you don't know about your local location. And if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me.
Awesome. Thank you, Sam.
Mm-hmm.
I will toggle again into full screen mode here. So that is a big piece of what the Institute is equipped to do, is enable the sustenance and the growth of World IA Day. In addition to that, we're doing some other stuff as well, sort of other kinds of work in progress we wanted to let you know about. So one of those is to continue what the previous board called a barn raising, which is an analogy from olden times when everybody would get together and help build something that was good. And that's the IA Institute Library. As you may know, the previous board had made some decisions, took us on a journey to re-platform, to get out of movable type and a number of other systems that weren't helpful, didn't do what we needed them to do. And migrating across the library content has been something that has taken a long time. It's been a long journey. And so I'm excited to announce that our CMS has now been fitted to the metadata schema that the barn raising team, when they started the project, one of the tools they developed was a metadata schema to describe all of the contents of the library. That is now realized in our content management system. And we're excited to be asking for, and there's a link on the news release on the website right now that you could follow. It's bit.ly/IAI-move-in. There's a volunteer sign-up sheet for taking the list of all of the library materials. We have them in multiple languages. They're scattered here and there, hither and yon, and we're going to catalog those according to this metadata schema, and we're going to load at a minimum the descriptors, at a maximum real content, and multiple translations of that content into our CMS and make the library useful. Where in the last year and a half, in order to reference the library, it's been a little bit unhelpful. The transitional state has been a spreadsheet pointing to all of those articles. And so we're moving finally at last from spreadsheet into website realization. So if that's something that sounds good to you, there are different levels of volunteer effort that the sign-up process will invite you into. If any of those fit your world, if you've got room in your schedule and in your heart to do some of that work, we would love to continue the barn raising. So thanks to everyone who's been involved in that so far. The next initiative, or rather sort of part of our work in progress, some of you may remember, longtime participants of the Institute may remember the once exceedingly useful but long dormant IA Institute Listservs. Those were an important resource in their time for practitioners to connect with each other, to have conversations about the practice, for all kinds of connecting. Those listservs had been useful for a time, and then they ceased to be useful. They were killed off a year or two ago, and the replacement for those listservs is a question that's been explored and partially answered at this point by an IAI volunteer named Daniel Zollman. And if you would like to join a beta version of what a new approach to facilitating conversation, discussion, etc., you can join this beta community today. If you go to iacommunity.dzolman.webfactional.com, there's a sign-up sheet there, and that's a pretty long URL to remember. So as with all of the URLs and invitations to volunteer and help us, a roll-up of all of those is in a news item on the IA Institute website. Okay, so that's highlighting some of the work in progress. And now for the final piece of our prepared comments before we open it up and see what questions you have and comments you'd like to make. A little bit toward sustainability for the Institute. And it may be surprising to some of you that it's phrased as a question. Toward sustainability, embedded in there is the idea that the Institute's stability, sustainability is in question. And as I reported earlier in the call, we have a break-even sort of keep the lights on operating model. We try to predict as best we can the trends in sponsorship, the trends in membership, and then use that as our budget to do the very few things that we do, which again are things like World IA Day, mentoring, infrastructure for a library, infrastructure for a couple of other ways for people to connect. And that really is our value proposition today, and has been, I believe, is that if you need to or want to connect with other people in this field who have interest in information architecture, the Institute provides that as value. And the 700 or 750% growth in our free membership, I would like to think of that as proof of a value proposition that endures, even while the dues-paying members' value proposition, that is slipping a little bit. And so when it comes to our revenue stream, it is non-diversified and therefore fragile. It really depends on 650 or so of you all paying anywhere from $20 to $50 a year to be a part of this and to keep it going. And so that to me does not appear to be a sustainable base with which the Institute can continue to grow and thrive. And part of that has to do with being an all-volunteer organization. The conceptual model of the Institute has, if any of you know the Seth Godin analogy of a meatball sundae, people love chocolate and ice cream sundaes, people love spaghetti and meatballs, but you put those things together in one serving and nobody really wants that. Our conceptual model today at the Institute is somewhere between a governing board, where you would have staffers and employees who would execute on a vision from some visionaries, and a working board, which is board members are doing stuff. And oftentimes the model of a working board includes board members supporting the institution financially as a requirement for entry into service. And so we are kind of in between the governing and working board models, and it would behoove us to do some more and better planning and to adapt that conceptual model and or the operating model to be something that's more clear and ideally more sustainable. And so toward those ends, we would like to invite those of you who have expertise relevant to the question of the sustainability of our 501c6 Board of Trade. For our organization, we would love to do the work of creating models. We want to use information architecture on the problems that we have. So what we're proposing today is, if you are interested in helping us with this, to write to president@iainstitute.org to offer your services. This is not every smart person, get them all in the room and talk about stuff. What we're looking for is people who are good at making conceptual models, operating models, financial forecasting models, etc., to do two things. We want to create a representation of the as-is, so a truthful picture of the conceptual, operating, and financial models of the Institute, and then posit some changes to those models that align with new ideas or clarified ideas about sustainability. And we want this working group to be kicked off as soon as possible in the next month or two. And we would love to be able to do some work that we could show at the next North American IA Summit in Chicago. And we will host a working session that all will be invited to show you what is the as-is conceptual operating financial model, and then talk about bang on debate differences, changes to those models that would be argued will get us closer to sustainability. So that's a conversation we all really want to have. And if that sounds like something you'd like to do, please apply, and I will talk with you, and maybe you can help us. Then the last thing, at least for today, in terms of prepared content, is to look ahead to elections in 2018. Most of the seats, except for our two new directors, except for Amy and Crispian, all of our seats are up for re-election per our bylaws. And so we want to prepare the next group of board members for that service. And the way that we propose to do that is to hold a remote workshop and information session about what it means to serve on the board. And we're going to facilitate one or more of those in early January 2018. to share information, to get real about how much time and commitment is involved, and to encourage people who are curious to investigate further and to consider serving on the board, because without people who are willing to make that volunteer commitment, the organization doesn't keep growing, doesn't keep on moving forward. So we'll be announcing those meetings in December. We will convene them in January. Then we will open up nominations at the beginning of February. We will do our voting after World IA Day toward the end of February. And then the new terms begin on April 1. So please consider, if you find that vision and mission compelling, if you find that vision and mission to be flawed and you'd like to do some work to get a better one in place, the way to do that is to get involved. And we would love to see a whole lot of you involved in the next round of elections. And so that concludes our prepared remarks, and somebody probably knows how to open this up now for Q&A.
Well, Dan, we did receive a question in the Q&A, and a member was asking, is the mentorship program still active and the list of mentors up to date? What's the best way to connect to someone who is available to mentor?
That's a fantastic question. The list of mentors is not up to date. And so what happens is, if you join the Institute, student, professional, or group membership, in the logged in view of the website, there is a tab that says mentorship. And the way that it is set up right now is for would-be mentees. Would-be mentees are invited to answer a number of questions that help pair them with mentors. And then we look at that sign-up sheet every couple of days. And for the last year, I've been personally connecting all would-be mentees with our members who have the expertise and the experience that matches. We recognize that the president of the organization personally handling all of the mentee connections is not very scalable. It also limits, sort of makes me a bottleneck. And our vision for the next round of elections, we've not had a dedicated director whose job is taking care of members. And the vision for the 2019, or start serving in April in 2018 board, is to have a chair dedicated to members, and that the mentorship program would be possibly scaled up by then. But in the meantime, and that was a very long answer to your question, anyone who's interested in mentorship can sign up and will be paired by me with somebody who has the experience you're looking for.
Thank you. Christina, I don't know if you're on the line. Did that help answer the question? Okay. Let's go to the next person. Who would like to ask a question?
So just as a heads up, there's a Q&A button at the top left of your screen, or there should be. If you want to answer a question via text, you can do so there. And if you'd like to speak, you can just raise your hand and we will make it so that you are able to be heard. You can also feel free to just type it into the chat box. We can also see that.
It looks like one other question came in about membership. And so they were asking if the group and individual memberships counted as individuals. For example, is one group membership counted the same as an individual membership? I believe, Dan, correct me if I'm wrong, the total count includes the total number of attendees in the group plus all the individuals. Is that correct?
We can double check, but that sounds right to me.
Okay, great. Anyone else? Going.
Perhaps we
Don't
should
be
ask
shy.
for objections.
Yes, any concerns, suggestions, any comments at all? Okay, well, it looks like we don't have any more questions, unless I did want to open it up to Dan Zolman, maybe if you want to say a few words, and then also if Sean wants to talk and say anything about the salary survey. Do you guys want to chime in here?
I'm adding them as panelists now in case they would like to say anything.
And in the meantime, I see there's a question from Austin Gavella regarding who's going to the summit. And I think that means and it's to the panelists. So I think that's to our board. Because we have negative revenue from last year, in the past, in the distant past, directors have, if they are not able to afford to attend, the Institute has paid some of the travel expenses for directors to attend. This year, we're not in a position to do that. So I think the short answer is the directors who attend will be those who are able to pay for it on their own. And at this point, because the summit is in Chicago and I live in the state of Michigan, I can absolutely report that I will be there. And at a minimum, I will be there to facilitate the working session. But I suspect that many of the other directors will be able to attend as well.
We also just got a question about local chapters, which I can answer. The question is, has there been any thought about having local chapters or supporting local UX IA groups? The answer is yes. As you can imagine, with World IA Day, this is a question that comes up a lot. And we have been having conversations with various interested parties over the last couple of years, over my time on the board. One of the big questions there is, how do we do that in a sustainable way? So again, pointing towards our kind of overall goal and the things we're looking forward to in the next couple of years. It's definitely on the table. It's definitely something we keep in the front of our minds, but there is not a current solid direction for that. If you're someone that's interested in that and you'd like to discuss it more, I'm happy to hear your thoughts. And we will definitely keep that in our pocket as part of that sustainability question.
Hi, can you hear me? This is Dan Zolman.
Yes, yes.
Hey, Dan.
Hi, Laura, you got cut off while you were switching me over. Could you repeat what you asked me?
Oh, I just didn't know if you wanted to say a few words about all the effort and volunteering that you've been involved with and sort of your efforts around the IAI.
Sure. So as Dan described, we're trying to figure out how to replace the old discussion lists and start up some kind of online community and discussion space for information architecture. So basically, there are two things going on. One is the beta community, as Dan mentioned. So we have a Google group that's set up as a temporary place to have discussions. And that hasn't been very active yet, but I'm hoping that we gain momentum over the next few weeks. And I'll be sending out a tentative project plan and schedule about the next steps. And then the other piece of that is we're discussing our needs and requirements and ultimately looking to select a permanent platform. And then once we select and choose that platform, we'll move everybody from the Google group over to that new platform. So any and all IAI members or non-members, anyone interested in being a part of this online community is welcome to join right now. And you can join and lurk, or you can join in the discussion and give input on the process of discussing requirements and choosing and making a recommendation about what platform we use in the long term. So feel free to follow the link to join the group, or just send me an email at dan@danzalman.com if you have any thoughts or questions.
Thank you so much, Dan. That's awesome work that you're doing. We so appreciate it.
It looks like there's a question from Andrew who asks, have there been other aspirational goals for the IAI that seem unrealistic at this time? Oh man, where to start with that? Yes. I have had the mostly pleasure of serving on the board in various capacities. I've been treasurer a couple of times. I'm now serving as president. I worked as a volunteer prior to being on the board. And there are a lot of good ideas that have come and gone and come back again. For example, I'll just throw one controversial one into the hopper, is certification. Many have wondered over the years if we're the group who are about the sort of the business opportunity for information architects, as we say we are. We're constituted as a board of trade, not a charity, we're a board of trade. So toward that end, if you wanted to help your members ply their trade more and better, why doesn't the Institute offer a certification? And hey, wouldn't the costs involved in the certification help the Institute have a more diversified revenue stream, set of revenue streams, et cetera, et cetera. And that's just one example of one good idea that we are not currently equipped in how we're put together, and our picture of resources around the Institute to pull that off. And so I expect that the working group will take a look at any number of the aspirational stuff that we've not done that seems like the Institute should be doing. Talking about those good ideas in terms of sustainability seems like the way to do it, and to get that conversation not just in the 6 or 7 of us on the board, but bringing members into that as equal partners. So again, long-winded answer to a short question. Lots of aspirational goals. We need to connect them to our vision and our mission, our operating model and our conceptual model, and then we can do whatever we want. But as of right now, with limited resources, we're not taking on those types of initiatives at this time.
Hey, Dan, another question came in about the status of the Journal of IA. So do you want to talk a little bit about how we want to stay connected to that?
Sure. The journal is not dead. I think the status of it would be cryogenic sleep. The people involved in making the journal be a thing are academic folk like Andrea Resmini, Jason Hobbs. There have been a lot of people involved in making the journal be a thing over the years. And Crispian, our new director of education, she's been serving for just a handful of months. And that is one of the many things in the wheelhouse for the education chair. And if you are interested in reinvigorating the journal, or if you have specific problems that its absence is causing you as a practitioner, as an academic, please let us know. And you can write to president@iainstitute.org, and I will make sure that Crispian gets those. But yeah, long story short is journal is asleep right now.
Well, we did get a comment from Stacy Serla. It looks like she's part of this meeting today. Stacy,
Hooray!
You have
Hey guys, how you doing?
Hi.
Yeah, there's just to update that there is a current issue of the Journal of IA that's under production. I know that because I reviewed articles that are going to go into it. I don't know what the schedule for publication is, but it's less. It's not actually asleep.
It's alive! Hooray!
It's alive.
Thank you, Stacy.
Sure.
All right, any other questions?
It looks like there's a little more elaboration on the journal from Noreen that at a recent the recent Euro IA that Andrea Resmini is talking about some activity around the amazing content at Euro IA this year and the journal. So my Lance, not sleeping at all. I'm just out of the loop.
Okay, before we wrap it up, Sean Fitzel, are you on the line? Sean heads up our salary survey every year and does a massive amount of work to compile and analyze all this data. Did you want to say a few words, Sean? I'm not sure if your mic is on.
Can you hear me all right?
Yes.
Great. Yeah, thanks everyone. I just got some results up and posted them last night. I think there's a link from the IA Institute website. And then the full text report supporting some of that stuff will be out hopefully later today. I actually wrapped it up just about 10 minutes before the meeting. So hopefully somebody can review it and find the mistakes that I didn't and let me know and I'll correct it. And be curious to hear what folks think about the different analyses we did, if they want to see any other comparisons going forward, or I can even work up some of the data from this year and look at some different views. There's so many different ways you can cut the numbers and only so much time that I can put into it. So if anyone also wants to help out in that in the future, open to partnership or passing it off even if anyone is also interested. So happy to talk about salary numbers and anything else. So just give a shout.
Thank you so much. And thank you for all the work that you've been doing there.
Sure.
It looks like there is a question from Keith Instone, who is a neighbor to me here in Michigan, down in Toledo, Ohio. Keith asked, do you see the relationship with the IA Summit and ASIST changing soon or same as usual? As some of you know, Dick Hill, who was the longtime executive director of ASIST and great advocate of that event, is no longer in that position. And so there have been some changes with the summit and the way that ASIST is going about it. We are operating today on the assumption that the Institute will continue to provide the support that it always has, and primarily that takes the shape of using our, again, back to what is our value proposition. It's connecting those who need to connect with the community of practice, with those practitioners. And many of us have been serving already for the 2018 conference as volunteer reviewers of submissions. We're planning to support that event and the great people around it as much as we ever have. And we hope to see as many of you as we can in Chicago next year.
Okay, great. So we need to get the links all in the right places on the website. For now, all of this is, there's been a ton of work and effort getting this all together for today's meeting. So just give us a little bit of time and we'll get all the links up to date. In the meantime, we'll post all the links within the news on the homepage, just so it's super easy for everyone to find. But we'll get all the links in the other places as well. So thank you guys all for joining today. Looks like we've gotten to all the questions and answers. If you have more, please continue to follow up with us. You can either email us at info@IA Institute or at president@IA Institute, and we will get back to you. with any outstanding questions that you have. Dan, did you want to say any final words?
I would just like to thank all of our participants, all of you board members, everybody, all 41 of you who participated on the call today. We've shifted to a disembodied version of this event. We used to do it in person at the North American IA Summit. We realized that as an international organization that isn't the best place to do it. So I think we've got more participants this year than last year. Let's keep that going. And we're grateful for the opportunity to serve, and we hope to meet some new, absolutely brand new to serving on the board. It's great to have us old crusties doing what we do, but the energy, the enthusiasm of people who are new to the practice or just new to service, the door is wide open, our hearts are wide open, and we'd love to meet even more of you than we already know.
Thank you, everyone. Have a great day.